Here, little sister, this is for you. My brother handed me a pendant with diamonds, but my husband snatched it and carried it to his mother. Then my brother roared, "Stop right there, you jerk!" And he pulled out of his pocket something that made everyone turn pale. But before I begin, I'll ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and enjoy listening. The projector screen displayed the last slide of my presentation, a three-dimensional visualization of a residential complex on the riverfront. I could feel the investors were already ready to sign the contract. It was at that moment that my phone vibrated on the table. The name on the display made me clench my teeth. Patricia Anderson. I declined the call and continued answering the client's questions about timelines. The phone rang again and again. On the fourth time, the head of the investment company grimaced and nodded at the device. Take it, since they're calling so insistently. I apologized and went out into the corridor. Hello. Jessica, where are you? My mother-in-law's voice sounded irritated. I've been waiting for you for 20 minutes outside your office. Patricia, we didn't plan anything for today. I have an important meeting. What do you mean, nothing? I told Michael I was coming. He should have told you. I need your help choosing paint colors for the bedroom. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. I can't right now. Let's talk tomorrow. Jess, don't be so cold. I already drove here, specially spent an hour and a half in traffic. In the conference room, people with checkbooks were waiting for me. Through the glass door, I could see my supervisor nervously glancing at his watch. I'm very sorry, but right now I physically cannot. I'll call later. I silenced my phone and returned to the hall. The deal went through, but a residue remained. Patricia Anderson knew how to spoil even the most important moments. In the evening, I came home exhausted but satisfied. The contract to design the residential complex meant serious career growth. I was 37, and I had finally entered the top management of the architectural firm. Michael was sitting in the kitchen with his laptop, concentrating on typing something. I approached and hugged him from behind. Guess what happened? They signed the contract, the one I told you about. $8 million for the whole project. My husband turned around, smiled tensely. Good job. By the way, Mom is upset. You were rude to her today. The smile froze on my face. I was at a presentation, the most important of my career. She specially drove to see you. Spent so much time in traffic. Michael, I didn't invite her. She didn't even give me proper notice. He shrugged and returned to his laptop. I stood staring at the back of his head, feeling the joy of success slowly draining away, leaving emptiness behind. Michael and I got married 4 years ago. He owned a chain of 5 pharmacies around the city, was charming and attentive. On dates, he brought flowers, opened car doors for me, was interested in my work. Patricia then seemed like an ordinary caring mother, a former high school math teacher, neat, always with makeup and proper speech. She smiled at me at our first meetings, asked about family, about plans. Everything changed after the wedding. A month after the ceremony, we moved into a new 3-bedroom condo in a good neighborhood. I contributed half the amount from my savings. We furnished the place gradually, choosing inexpensive but functional furniture. A sofa from IKEA for $1,200, a dining table from the same store. I didn't object, considered it a temporary option until we saved up for something better. And then came the bank statement and I saw the line, loaned for $35,000. I was sitting in the kitchen with the printout in my hands when Michael returned from work. He didn't even notice my condition. Walked past, threw his keys on the counter. Mike, come here. He stopped in the bedroom doorway, turned around. What is this? I handed him the sheet. He glanced at it. His face tensed for a second, then relaxed into a smile. Oh, I wanted to tell you, just got too busy. $35,000 loan. For what? Mom found an excellent furniture store. They're having a clearance sale on Italian designer sets. I bought her a sofa, an armchair, an entertainment center. Everything is very high quality. Will last a decade. I slowly put the cup on the table. You took a loan for $35,000 to buy furniture for your mother? Well, yes. What's wrong with that? Michael, we ourselves have furniture from IKEA. Jess, well, we're young. This furniture will serve us another 20 years. And Mom has been sitting on an old sofa her whole life, since the 80s. It's uncomfortable for her. Her back hurts. I couldn't leave her suffering like that. You could have asked me. This is our joint budget, our joint debts now. I didn't think you'd be against it. She's my mom. He sincerely didn't understand what the problem was. He looked at me with bewilderment, even with slight offense. Michael, listen. I'm not against helping your mom, but $35,000 is huge money. We should have discussed this. Mom was so happy. You should have seen her face when the delivery guys brought everything in. She cried with happiness. I covered my face with my hands. The conversation had reached a dead end. He didn't see the problem, and I didn't know how to explain to him what seemed obvious. Okay, but next time warn me. Agreed. He nodded, kissed me on the top of my head, and went to the shower. I remained sitting in the kitchen, leafing through the statement. A loan for 5 years at 12% APR. Monthly payment $780. Patricia began appearing at our place more and more often. At first she called and warned about visits. Then she started just coming, texting an hour before. And once I returned from work and found her in the kitchen, heating up Tupperware containers of food in the microwave. Patricia, how did you get in? She turned around, smiled. Oh, Jessie, hello. Michael gave me a spare set of keys so I could bring you food. You don't really know how to cook. My boy is probably starving. I put my bag on the floor. Michael didn't tell me about this. Come on, we're family. We're not going to coordinate everything by text each time. She set out plates, laid out silverware. I went into the bedroom, took out my phone, and texted my husband. Your mother has keys to our apartment. Is this normal? The answer came 20 minutes later. Jess, don't dramatize. She just wants to help. Patricia's help took increasingly strange forms. She would come when we weren't home and clean, rearrange things according to her understanding. My work documents ended up stacked on the bookshelf. Cosmetics were lined up on the vanity by color. Clothes in the closet hung differently than I was used to. Once I came early, around 3 p.m. The bedroom door was ajar and I heard rustling. I looked inside and was stunned. Patricia was standing at the dresser and rearranging my underwear. She was taking out panties, bras, examining them, putting them aside in different directions. What are you doing? My mother-in-law flinched, turned around. There was neither embarrassment nor guilt on her face. Jess, you scared me. I decided to tidy up your closet. It's such a mess here. You're going through my underwear. So what? I'm Michael's mother. I care what you wear in front of him. Look, this is all old and faded. This needs to be thrown out. She handed me several sets. I snatched them from her hands, feeling everything boiling inside. Patricia returned the keys. Right now. The keys to our apartment. Immediately. She straightened up. Her lips compressed into a thin line. Jessica, you forget yourself. I'm your husband's mother. And that doesn't give you the right to rummage through my personal things. Keys. Now. Patricia looked at me with a long stare. Then, with dignity, she walked to her purse lying on the sofa, took out a bunch of keys, and threw them on the coffee table. The keys clinked against the glass. So that's how it is. Remember, girl, if it comes to a choice between you and me, Michael will choose me. Always. She left without saying goodbye. I stood in the middle of the bedroom, clutching my underwear in my hands, trembling with rage and humiliation. In the evening, Michael returned gloomy. Mom called crying. Says you kicked her out. I didn't kick her out. I asked her to return the keys because I caught her going through my underwear in the closet. He frowned. Maybe she just wanted to help with cleaning? Michael, do you hear what I'm saying? She was rummaging through my underwear. So what? She's not a stranger. I opened my mouth but found no words. He really didn't see the problem. For him, this was normal. Listen, maybe you shouldn't have taken the keys from her? It was convenient for Mom to come while we're not here, so as not to bother. It's inconvenient for me. Jess, but you understand how upset she is now. She does so much for us. And I'm asking you to understand me. This is our personal space. I have a right to privacy. Michael sighed, rubbed the bridge of his nose. Okay, but call Mom. Apologize. She's very upset. He went to the kitchen. I remained standing in the hallway, looking at the closed door. For the first time in 4 years of marriage, I felt like a stranger in my own home. In mid-October, I turned 37. Michael gave me a small box with jewelry, a thin chain with a heart-shaped pendant, costume jewelry obviously from a mall kiosk, cost at most $20. Thank you, I forced a smile. I hope you liked it. I chose it myself. We had dinner at a restaurant, returned home. Michael was unusually silent, constantly checking his phone. I attributed it to fatigue. A week later, I took his phone to look at a recipe he had recently saved. I accidentally opened the photo folder. Among the food pictures and screenshots, I saw a photo of a receipt. I enlarged the image. Jewelry store. Gold bracelet with engraving. Amount, $8,500. Date, 2 days before my birthday. I scrolled further. A photo of Patricia. She's sitting at a set table. On her hand shines a massive gold bracelet. She's smiling at the camera, satisfied. Michael entered the room with a cup of coffee. Why did you buy your mother a bracelet for $8,500 and give me costume jewelry for $20? He stopped, looked at the phone in my hands. You're going through my phone. Answer the question. Michael put the cup on the windowsill, ran his hand through his hair. Jess, but these are different things. You still have to give birth? Why do you need expensive jewelry? You might lose it, damage it. And Mom at her age needs to be given joy. She has so few pleasures in life. I looked at the chain lying on the nightstand. The cheap metal was already beginning to tarnish at the clasp. So I'm worth $20 to you, and your mother $8,500. Don't be so crude. It's not about money. It's precisely about money and about attitude. God, why are you clinging to this? I gave you a symbolic gift. Michael waved his hand irritably. You know what? You're ungrateful. I try for you and you're constantly dissatisfied. He left the room. I remained sitting on the bed with his phone in my hands. On the screen still glowed the photo of a smiling Patricia with the gold bracelet. In early November, Michael's parents celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Patricia organized a party at a restaurant, invited all relatives. About 30 people at the table. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. I sat next to Michael, smiled, answered questions about work. Patricia was radiant in a new burgundy outfit. On her wrist glittered that very bracelet. When the main course was served, my mother-in-law stood up with a glass in her hand. Dear guests, I want to say a few words. 40 years ago, I married Robert, and it was the best decision of my life. We raised a wonderful son who is now also married. She looked in my direction. The smile became slightly harder. True, modern wives are not like we were. Look at Jessica. Thin, pale. Probably not feeding my son properly. Always disappearing at work. An awkward chuckle went around the table. I felt my cheeks redden. And their place is constantly messy. I go over there, dust everywhere, dirty dishes. I have to clean myself because I feel sorry for my son. Michael sat next to me and was silent, staring at his plate. I put the napkin on the table and stood up. Patricia, I understand that today is your celebration, But I must stop you. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. First, I'm not disappearing at work. I work as a lead architect, earn a good salary, and provide for myself. Second, our apartment is clean because I pay a cleaning service twice a week. Third, your son eats perfectly well, and if you have questions about my weight, you can contact my doctor. The room fell silent. Patricia turned pale. How dare you talk to me like that? The same way you dare to discuss me in front of strangers? I showed you respect by coming to your anniversary. Please respond in kind. I sat back down. Michael grabbed my hand under the table, squeezed so hard it hurt. Why did you do that? He whispered. And why did you stay silent while your mother humiliated me? The rest of the evening passed in strained silence. Patricia made no more toasts. Relatives exchanged glances, whispered. Robert, my father-in-law, was the only one who approached me before leaving and quietly said, Good for you. Pat gets carried away sometimes. At home, Michael didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. He answered monosyllabically, slept turned to the wall. On the 3rd week, he broke down. You humiliated my mother in front of all the relatives. She started humiliating me first. You should have kept quiet. You must respect your elders. Respect should be mutual. My mom taught kids her whole life. She's a dedicated educator. And who are you to lecture her? I looked at him and suddenly realized he would never take my side. Never. Patricia would always be more important to him. In December, I was offered to head a shopping center construction project in a new development, a contract for $10 million, part of which would go to me as project manager. This was a career breakthrough. At 37, to become the chief architect of such a large-scale project. I burst into the house with the words, Mike, you won't believe it. They offered me to head the mall project. Contract for $10 million. He raised his head from the laptop, smiled. That's great, Jess. Congratulations. My fee will be about $1.5 million for the entire period. We can finally update the furniture, go on a real vacation. Michael was silent, then coughed. By the way, about money. Mom needs to replace the windows in her house. They're old single-pane ones. There's a terrible draft. She's been freezing all winter. I calculated. For the whole house, it'll come out to about $25,000. Maybe we can pay from your fee. The joy evaporated. Michael, this is my fee. For my work. Well, yes, but Mom is freezing. She might start having health problems. Your mother has Social Security. You have a business. Why should I pay for her windows for money I haven't even earned yet? Because we're family. Family helps each other. Then why does help always go in one direction? To your mother. Michael frowned. Don't exaggerate. A loan for $35,000 for furniture for her. A bracelet for $8,500. Now windows. Michael, in 4 years of marriage, you've spent more than $60,000 on your mother. On me, at best, $3,000. Because Mom is in need. And you have everything. I have everything because I bought it all myself. He grabbed the car keys and left, slamming the door. He returned only in the morning. Lay down on the sofa in the living room. The next week, he slept there, demonstratively avoiding me. I understood he was trying to break me with silence and distance. Before it worked. I would make concessions just to stop the Cold War. But now something in me had changed. I calmly went to work, returned, cooked dinner only for myself. Michael ordered food through DoorDash. On the 8th day, he gave up. Okay, forget about the windows. Thank you. But you understand that Mom is upset. Let her be upset. Michael looked at me with surprise. It seemed he saw for the first time that I could seriously resist. In late December, my younger brother, Danny, came to visit. He was 29. He worked as a mixed martial arts coach at a gym. Strong, with a crew cut and a scar on his eyebrow from an unsuccessful sparring match. We were always close, despite the age difference. Michael had left to help his mother with some home repairs. I stayed home. Danny came with a cake and a bottle of wine. "Well, sis, let's celebrate your project." We sat in the kitchen, drank wine, talked about work, about his upcoming tournament. Then Danny fell silent, looked at me attentively. "Jess, what's wrong with you?" "What do you mean?" "You've changed. Your eyes look sad. You've lost weight. What's going on?" I wanted to brush it off, but couldn't. The words poured out. I told him about the loan for furniture, about the keys and underwear, about the bracelet for $8,500 and costume jewelry for $20, about the anniversary party and scandal about the windows. Danny listened silently. His face hardened with each minute. "Jessica, are you serious? You tolerate this?" "I'm not tolerating. I'm resisting. But you're still with him." "We've been married 4 years, Danny. You can't just up and leave." "You can." He leaned toward me across the table. "Listen, I get that it was good for you together at some point, but now he's chosen his mom. He'll always choose his mom. Are you sure you want to put up with this?" "I don't know. You deserve better, Jess. Much better." He hugged me, and I felt something painfully squeezing inside. Danny had always been there. When I was in college, he brought me notes if I was sick. When I defended my thesis, he sat in the audience with his thumbs up. When I was getting married, he was the best man, making sure everything went smoothly. And Michael in recent years had been physically nearby, but not really there. "I'm always on your side," Danny said quietly. "If anything, tell me I'll come. I'll do anything." "I know." I smiled through tears. "Thank you, little brother." He left late in the evening. January began with an unpleasant surprise. I was sorting through documents for tax returns and came across a folder with papers for our vacation home. We bought it 2 years ago. A small cabin in the mountains, 45 minutes from the city. I contributed half the amount, $100,000. The cabin was registered as joint property. I opened the deed and couldn't believe my eyes. Sole owner, Patricia Anderson. Date of transfer, 3 months ago. My hands trembled. I took out my phone, called the county recorder's office, gave the property number. The clerk confirmed, owner Patricia Anderson. Transfer of ownership registered October 21st. Michael returned home around 8 p.m. I was sitting in the kitchen with documents in front of me. "Mike, sit down." He looked at my tone, frowned, but sat down. "Explain this to me." I placed the deed in front of him. He glanced at it, looked away. "Oh, that. Yes, I thought it would be better this way." "Better." "Jess, Mom is getting older. She should have something of her own, some security. And the cabin will come to us through her, will anyway, someday." I slowly exhaled, trying to stay calm. "Michael, you transferred property that we bought together into your mother's name. I contributed $100,000. How did you do this without my consent?" He was silent, then shrugged. "Remember, you gave me power of attorney to handle the title insurance. Well, I used it. That's fraud. Do you understand?" "Don't dramatize. Everything stays in the family. In your family. I spent $100,000, and now I have no rights to this cabin. Jess, you understand, Mom needs security. She worries about being alone in old age. She has a house, Social Security, and a son who's ready to give her everything. Nothing threatens her." Michael stood up. "It would come to Mom someday anyway. I just made it happen sooner. I don't see the problem." He went to the bedroom. I remained sitting in the kitchen, looking at the document. $100,000. My money just evaporated. In the morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer. She carefully studied the documents and shook her head. "Technically, your husband committed fraud. The power of attorney was issued for a specific purpose, and he used it for something else. You can contest the transfer in court." "What are the chances?" "Good. If you prove that you didn't consent to the transfer of property, but this will be messy. Are you ready? I looked at the wedding ring on my finger. Was I ready? A week later, the situation worsened. I returned from work on Thursday, around 6 p.m. I opened the door and froze. In the living room at the table sat 8 elderly women, friends of Patricia. They were drinking tea, eating cookies, talking loudly. On the coffee table were laid out my jewelry, earrings, rings, bracelets. Several women held my cosmetics in their hands, examining eyeshadows, lipstick. What's going on here? Patricia turned around, smiled. Oh, Jesse's home. We're here with the ladies. I'm showing them how modern young people live. You've gone through my personal things? Come on, don't be stingy. The ladies just wanted to look, didn't take anything. One of the women, a plump lady of about 70, put on my gold earrings and was twirling in front of the mirror. Take them off immediately. Oh, how rude, she giggled. I approached, took the earrings from her, gathered all the jewelry from the table. I'm asking everyone to leave my apartment right now. Jessica, what are you doing? Patricia was indignant. I'm throwing uninvited people out of my home. You have 2 minutes. The women exchanged glances, began reluctantly gathering their things. They left slowly, deliberately, muttering under their breath. Patricia stood up last, staring at me coldly. You'll regret this. When the door closed behind them, I leaned against the wall, gathered the cosmetics with trembling hands, carried it to the bedroom. Several lipsticks were open, shadows in one palette, smeared with fingers. My favorite cream, half used up. Michael returned at 10 p.m. His phone was ringing constantly. His mother was calling. Mom says you made a scene and kicked her and her friends out. Your mother had a gathering in our apartment when we weren't home. They were going through my things. Jess, these are her friends, old ladies. They were just curious. Michael, they were wearing my earrings, using my makeup. So what? It's not like it was a big deal. It's not about that. It's about respecting boundaries. He tiredly ran his hand over his face. You know, Jessica, you've become somehow harsh, cold. Mom is right. Modern women don't know how to be kind. I looked at him and understood. We speak different languages. What for me was an egregious violation, for him was nothing. In February, I was supposed to have an important business trip to Denver. Presentation of the project to major investors. 3 days of meetings, presentations, conferences. Flight at 7 a.m. Mike, you'll take me to the airport? I asked a week before departure. Of course, Jess. No question. I packed my suitcase in the evening, checked documents, rehearsed the presentation. I went to bed at 11 o'clock, set the alarm for 4 a.m. At 5:30 a.m. I was ready. Suitcase by the door, suit pressed, makeup done. Michael was sleeping. I woke him up. Mike, get up. We need to leave in 20 minutes. He opened his eyes, looked at his phone. There were 3 missed calls from his mother on the screen. Damn, 1 second. He dialed the number, went to the kitchen. I heard fragments of the conversation. Seriously? When? Okay, I'm coming now. Michael returned, looked at me guiltily. Jess, sorry. Mom's water heater burst. Water is flooding everywhere. I need to go to her right away. What? Michael, I have a flight in 2 hours. Well, take an Uber. I can't leave Mom in this situation. You promised to take me. Jess, please understand this is an emergency. The water heater burst. He was already pulling on jeans, looking for car keys. And my project? My presentation. You'll manage. You're smart. He kissed me on the cheek and ran out the door. I remained standing in the hallway with the suitcase. I ordered an Uber. The app showed wait time 12 minutes. I nervously paced the apartment, checking documents, boarding pass. The Uber was 7 minutes late. The driver drove slowly. We hit traffic. I got to the airport 40 minutes before departure. Security line was long. I barely made it. I got stuck with a middle seat. In Denver, I was exhausted, angry. But I gave it my all. The presentation went well. The investors approved the project. On the second day, my neighbor from Patricia's building, Carol, called. An elderly woman I sometimes saw. Jessica, dear, this is Carol from next door to Patricia. I accidentally heard that her water heater supposedly burst. Yes, that's what I was told. Strange. I live right next door. I'm home all the time. There was no flooding, and I didn't see any plumbers. My stomach dropped. Carol, are you sure? Positive. Actually, that morning I stopped by Patricia's to borrow some sugar. It was around 8 o'clock. She asked Michael to help her move an armoire in the bedroom. Michael had just gotten there. The two of them were rearranging furniture. I thanked her and hung up. So there was no water heater. Patricia simply made up an excuse to get her son to come over. And Michael didn't even question it, left me at the most important moment. I returned from the business trip on Friday evening. Michael met me with flowers. Well, how did it go? Great. The project was approved. Good job, babe. He hugged me. I pulled away. There was no water heater. At your mother's. What? No water heater burst. Carol, said your mother, just wanted you to help her move furniture. Michael looked embarrassed, looked away. Well, maybe Mom exaggerated how urgent it was. Exaggerated. She lied, and you believed her and abandoned me before the most important business trip. Jess, I couldn't have known. You could have called a plumber to check, but you didn't even think to question your mother's story. He was silent. I'm sorry. Really sorry. But the apology no longer mattered. Something inside me had finally broken. In March, I noticed that my period hadn't come. I took 3 tests, all positive. Pregnant. 5 weeks. I sat on the bed, holding the test in my hands, not knowing what to feel. Joy. Fear. I wanted a child, but not in such an atmosphere. Not with such a husband. Michael returned home. I silently handed him the test. He looked, his face broke into a smile. Seriously, Jess? This is amazing. He hugged me, lifted me up. Mom will be so happy. She's been wanting grandkids forever. I froze in his arms. Wait, you want to tell her right away? Of course. It's her grandchild. Michael, I'm only 5 weeks. Usually you don't tell anyone until 12 weeks. Come on, what's superstition? Mom will be thrilled. He grabbed his phone, called his mother. Mom, hi. I have news. You're going to be a grandma. I heard Patricia's delighted squeal through the phone. Michael smiled, answered her, laughed. Yes, of course, Mom, naturally. You'll help us out. He hung up, beaming. Mom is so excited. She says when you give birth, she'll move in with us for the first year, help with the baby. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. What? Well, yeah, she's experienced, raised me. She'll help you, give you advice. Michael, we didn't even discuss this. What's there to discuss? She's the grandmother. Of course, she'll stay with us. No. What? No. She won't be living with us. I don't want that. Michael frowned. Jess, are you serious? You can't handle a first baby without help. There are nannies. There's my mother, who can also help. But your mom already agreed. I can't tell her no now. You didn't even ask my opinion. You just made a decision for me. He waved his hand. That's it. I don't want to talk about this. You're pregnant. You shouldn't be stressed. He went to the kitchen. I remained in the bedroom, pressing my hand to my stomach. A new life was forming inside, and I felt only dread and fear. 2 weeks later, everything collapsed. I woke up at night from sharp pain in my lower abdomen. I went to the bathroom, saw blood. A lot of blood. I woke Michael. He called 911. At the hospital, they did an ultrasound. The doctor looked at the screen, shook her head. There's no heartbeat. You're having a miscarriage. We need to do a D&C. I lay in the hospital bed after the procedure. My body ached. Inside was emptiness, literal and figurative. Michael came about 2 hours later. How are you? Fine. He sat with me, held my hand, then his phone rang. He looked at the screen, grimaced. Mom, she found out, is really upset. He stepped into the hallway, talked for a long time, returned looking worried. Jess, sorry, I need to go to Mom. Her blood pressure spiked from the stress. She says she feels terrible. I should be with her. I'll come back in the morning. He kissed me on the forehead and left. I remained alone in the hospital room. At 9 p.m., the door opened. Danny entered with a bag of snacks and magazines. Jess! He sat next to me, hugged me. I broke down, crying against his shoulder. Where's that asshole? At his mom's. She has high blood pressure. Danny cursed under his breath. Jessica, this guy doesn't deserve you. Not at all. He stayed with me all night, sat in the chair next to the bed, held my hand. When I was in pain, he called the nurse. When I cried, he silently stroked my hair. In the morning, Michael came, saw Danny, looked embarrassed. Hey, I didn't know you'd come. Someone had to be with my sister, Danny answered coldly. Michael lowered his eyes. I was discharged after 2 days. I returned home, weak, empty. I opened the door and heard voices in the kitchen. Patricia stood at the stove, stirring something in a pot. In the guest room on the futon lay her things, clothes, toiletry bags, slippers. What is this? Michael came out of the bedroom. Oh, you're home? Mom moved in for a while. She'll take care of you while you recover. I didn't ask for this. Jess, you need help. I'm at work all day. Can't watch over you. Patricia turned around, smiled tightly. Jessica, I made you a healing tea. Drink it 3 times a day. She handed me a mug with murky brown liquid. It smelled awful. What is this? Herbs. From an old family recipe. My grandmother used to make it. I took the mug, smelled it, put it on the counter. Thank you, but I won't drink this. Jessica, it's good for you. I'm taking medicine prescribed by my doctor. Patricia looked offended, turned back to the stove. Michael shook his head, as if I was being unreasonable. The following days became a nightmare. My mother-in-law got up early, made disgusting herbal teas, insisted I drink them. She came into the bedroom every hour to check on me, constantly lectured me about how I probably didn't take care of myself, maybe exercised too much or didn't eat right. I told Michael, you're too thin. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. She was everywhere, in the kitchen, in the living room, in the hallway. Even when I lay in the bedroom with the door closed, she knocked and came in with questions. A week later, I couldn't take it. I waited for the evening when Michael returned from work. I need to talk to you. We sat in the kitchen. Patricia was watching TV in the living room. Michael, your mother needs to leave. Why? She's helping. She's not helping. She's driving me crazy. I can't exist in my own apartment. I need space to process what happened. Jess, Mom is trying her best. I didn't ask her to try. I want her to leave. Michael rubbed his face. I can't ask her to leave. She'll be so hurt. And what about me? You're young, you'll be fine. And Mom? She's older. She needs to feel needed. I stood up. Fine, then I'm leaving. I went to the bedroom, took out a bag, began packing. Michael followed. Where are you going? To my parents. I need peace. Jessica, don't be dramatic. This isn't drama, this is a decision. I packed the essentials, called an Uber. Michael stood in the doorway, confused. Are you seriously leaving? Yes. Because of Mom? Because of everything, Michael. Because of the cabin you put in her name. Because of the money you spend on her. Because she's more important than me. Always has been. The Uber arrived. I left the apartment without looking back. I lived at my parents' for 3 days. My father silently hugged me in the mornings. Mom cooked my favorite meals. They didn't ask too many questions, just were there. On the fourth day, Danny called. Jess, come over for dinner. Mom wants you to know she's making your favorite lasagna. I came in the evening. The table was set. It smelled like home cooking. We sat together, Danny, me, and our parents. Dad talked about work. Mom asked about my project. Nobody mentioned Michael. For the first time in a month, I felt I could breathe. After dinner, Danny walked me to my car. Stay with us for a few days. You'll actually rest. I nodded. That night, I slept in my old room in my twin bed under my childhood comforter. I slept without nightmares for the first time in weeks. Michael called once around 11 p.m. When are you coming home? I don't know. I need time. Okay. Mom is asking if you need anything. I hung up without answering. He didn't call again. 3 days later, I decided to pick up the rest of my things. I came during the day when Michael was at work. I opened the door with my key and froze. The apartment had changed beyond recognition. The curtains we chose together 3 years ago, cream-colored and simple, had disappeared. Instead hung heavy burgundy drapes with tassels. The furniture was rearranged. The sofa was by the window, the coffee table pushed into a corner. New paintings appeared on the walls, tacky floral prints in ornate frames. I went into the bedroom. The bed was moved, the dresser turned around. My clothes that I hadn't had time to take were gone from the closet. I opened it. There hung only Michael's things and several of Patricia's outfits. In the kitchen, on the table, lay a pile of my things. Sweaters, jeans, blouses, all dumped in a messy heap. Next to it was a trash bag stuffed full. I looked inside. My books, cosmetics, framed photos. The front door opened. Michael entered, saw me, stopped. Oh, you're here. What happened here? He looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. Mom decided to refresh the decor. Said it was too boring here. She bought new curtains, paintings, rearranged everything. Where are my things? Well, they're there. He nodded at the pile on the table. Mom picked out what looked old, threw out the rest, said it was time for an upgrade. I walked to the trash bag, pulled out a frame with a photo. Me and Danny at his college graduation. The glass was cracked. Michael, this is my apartment. Our apartment. How could she do this? He shrugged. Mom was trying to help. You're not living here anyway. I looked at him, at this person I had lived with for 4 years, at his indifferent face, at the casual shrug, at the complete lack of understanding. Michael, I want a divorce. He flinched as if I had slapped him. What? A divorce. I'm filing tomorrow. Jess, what are you talking about? Over some curtains. Not over curtains. Over everything. Over you putting our cabin in your mother's name. Over you spending our money on her. Over her being more important than me, always. You're just tired. Let's talk this through. I don't need to talk. I need a divorce. I gathered my things from the table. Stuffed what would fit into my bag. Got my important documents from the dresser. Passport, marriage certificate, bank cards. I took off my wedding ring, put it on the kitchen counter. Jessica, wait, let's discuss this. I walked out without looking back. The next day, I went to a lawyer. A woman in her 50s with graying hair and a sharp gaze. Her name was Karen Mitchell. She was recommended by a colleague. Tell me everything. I told it all. About the loan for furniture, about the cabin, about the fraudulent power of attorney. Karen listened carefully, took notes. We can definitely pursue the cabin. Using a power of attorney beyond its stated purpose is fraud. We can contest the transfer, get the property back in joint ownership, then sell it and split the proceeds. What are my chances? Very good, if we prove you didn't consent. We need witnesses, proof that you invested your money in buying the cabin. I have bank statements. They show I wired $100,000. Perfect. That's all we need. We began preparing documents. Karen filed for divorce and equitable distribution. Separately, I filed a police report about the fraudulent transfer. Michael got served a week later. He called me that evening yelling, "You filed a police report against me? For fraud. You illegally transferred jointly owned property. Jessica, are you insane? My mother will be dragged into this. Your mother received property through fraudulent documents. She should answer for it." He hung up. An hour later, Patricia called. "Are you happy now? Trying to put us in jail." "I'm trying to get back what's rightfully mine. We'll destroy you in court. I'll tell everyone what you're really like. That you're a terrible wife, that you abused Michael. Record that, Patricia. It'll be useful for my restraining order." I had already started recording the call. My mother-in-law continued ranting for another 5 minutes, threatening, insulting. Then she hung up. Danny helped me find a criminal defense attorney, a friend of his who specialized in fraud cases. He agreed to help with the criminal complaint. "Your husband used a power of attorney for purposes beyond what it authorized. That's fraud. Could be up to 5 years or a fine. I don't want him in prison. I just want the cabin back." Usually in these cases they settle. They return the property, we drop the charges. But this gives us leverage. Let them know you're serious. The police opened an investigation. Michael was called in for questioning. Patricia too. They came back pale and shaken. 2 weeks later their lawyer contacted Karen, offered a settlement. The cabin would be returned to joint ownership. Sold. Proceeds split 50/50ths. In return, I'd drop the criminal complaint. I agreed. I didn't need anyone in jail. I just needed justice. In early April, Danny called, excited. "Jess, I won." "Won what?" "The tournament. Regional MMA championship. Took first place." "Danny, that's amazing." "And I got a prize purse. $150,000. Jess, I want to celebrate. Throw a dinner at a nice restaurant. Invite you, Mom and Dad, some friends." "I'd love to come." "And I also want to invite Michael." I went silent. "Why?" "Because you're still legally married. Because I want to give him one last chance to act like a decent human being. And so you can see if he screws up again, you'll know for sure you're doing the right thing." I thought about it. "Okay, invite him." The restaurant was upscale but cozy, with soft lighting and a jazz trio. Danny had reserved a private room. The tables were arranged in a U-shape. I sat to Danny's right. Across was an empty seat for Michael. Guests arrived gradually. Our parents, 2 of Danny's training partners, a cousin with her husband. Everyone congratulated Danny, hugged him, laughed. Michael arrived 20 minutes late and not alone. Patricia entered after him in a new burgundy dress with that gold bracelet on her wrist. Danny stood up, approached them. "Patricia, I didn't invite you." "Oh, Danny, I could not come celebrate with you. And Michael needs my support right now." She looked at me with a cold smile. Danny wanted to say something, but I shook my head. Let her stay. Let Danny see them both. Michael and Patricia sat across from us. The evening started tensely. Guests exchanged glances, sensing the awkwardness. Danny made a toast, thanked everyone for their support, then stood again, holding his glass. "I want to give a special gift to the most important person in my life." He pulled out of his jacket pocket a velvet jewelry box. Navy blue velvet, worn at the edges. He opened it. Inside, on white satin, lay a pendant, gold with 3 vintage-cut diamonds. I recognized it immediately. It was our grandmother's pendant, which she wore her whole life and left to us in her will. "Here, sis, this is for you." Danny handed me the pendant with diamonds, but Michael snatched it from his hand and started walking toward his mother. Then Danny roared, "Stop right there, you jerk!" And he pulled from his pocket something that made everyone go pale. A taser, black, compact, but intimidating. Danny held it in his hand, not pointing it at Michael, just holding it. The room froze. Michael stopped mid-stride. The pendant clutched in his fist. His face went white, eyes wide. "Give it back. Now." Danny's voice was ice-cold, absolutely calm. But the threat in it was unmistakable. Michael slowly turned around, extended his hand. I took the pendant. Patricia jumped up. "How dare you? That's assault. We'll call the police." Danny smiled grimly, put the taser back in his pocket. "Go ahead. And while you're at it, explain why your son tried to steal property in front of 10 witnesses." The guests sat in uncomfortable silence. I stood up, fastened the pendant around my neck, turned to Michael. "That's it. I'm filing for divorce. You'll get the papers tomorrow." "Jess, I didn't mean to. It's just." "Michael, you made your choice. You've always made your choice, and that's fine. Now I'm making mine." Patricia grabbed her son's arm. "Michael, we're leaving right now. I won't let these people treat us like this." They left. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled. One of Danny's friends hesitantly clapped. Then others joined in. Danny hugged me. "You did the right thing." I leaned against him, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. The divorce papers were filed the next day. Karen warned, "Prepare for a fight. They won't give up easily." She was right. War began. Michael, through his lawyer, claimed the condo was bought entirely with his money, that I hadn't contributed anything, that I'd lived off him for 4 years. I brought bank statements. They clearly showed I had transferred $200,000 to escrow, exactly half the purchase price. Patricia gave testimony in court. She told how I was a terrible wife. Didn't cook, didn't clean, was rude to her, couldn't even carry a baby to term. I sat in the courtroom and listened to the lies. Karen put her hand on my shoulder, steadying me. My mother-in-law came to my office, made scenes in the lobby, yelled for everyone to hear that I destroyed her son's life. Security escorted her out. On the third occasion, I filed for a restraining order. Danny testified in court, described how I came to him after the hospital, how Michael abandoned me to go to his mother, how Patricia invaded our lives and Michael enabled it. My lawyer presented evidence of the power of attorney fraud. A forensic document examiner confirmed it was used beyond its authorized scope. The cabin had to be returned. The trial lasted 3 months. 3 months of hearings, depositions, examinations, motions. In July, the judge issued a ruling. The marriage was dissolved. Assets to be divided equally. The condo would be sold. Proceeds split 50/50. The cabin would also be sold. Proceeds split. The furniture loan in Michael's name was his sole responsibility. Patricia was ordered to transfer the cabin back to joint ownership before sale. I left the courthouse and for the first time in months felt relief. The condo sold in August. I received $210,000, my half-plus compensation for furniture I'd purchased. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment near work, small, bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows. The cabin sold in September. Another $100,000. The shopping center project I'd been working on was completed. The grand opening was in October. I was invited to speak at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. A week later, an editor from Architectural Digest called, "Your project has been nominated for a design award." In November, I received that award. I stood on stage, holding the trophy, and couldn't believe it was real. Work consumed me. I was offered to lead a new project, a luxury residential development. I said yes. Contract worth $12 million. In December, on a cold evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it. Michael stood on my doorstep. He looked older, thinner, worn down. Dark circles under his eyes. He held a bouquet of roses. "Jessica, can I come in?" I let him in, not out of kindness but curiosity. I wanted to know why he'd come. Michael entered, looked around. The apartment was minimally furnished. Sofa, desk, bookshelf. On the wall, my award in a frame. "You've done well for yourself." "Thanks." He hesitated, held out the flowers. I took them, put them in a vase. "Jess, I realized I was wrong." I sat on the sofa, waited. Mom. She really did have too much influence over me. I didn't see it before, but I do now. You were right about everything. Good. I want to apologize for everything. For the cabin, for the money, for not being there at the hospital, for Mom and how she treated you. Apology accepted. He looked at me hopefully. Maybe we could try again? Start fresh. I looked at him, at this man I'd lived with for 4 years. I tried to remember if I'd loved him once. Probably. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married him. But now, looking at him, I felt nothing. Not love, not hate. Just emptiness and mild indifference. You know, Michael, maybe you did realize something, but it doesn't matter anymore. Why not? Because I spent 4 years with you in constant stress and the last 8 months in peace. And you know what? I like peace. He lowered his head. I love you. You love the idea of me, a convenient wife who won't challenge your mother. But that's not who I am, Michael. Never was. I stood up, opened the door. Thank you for coming. I sincerely hope you find happiness. Just not with me. He left without looking back. I closed the door and leaned against it. No tears, no regret. Just relief. On Saturday, I met Danny at a coffee shop near my place. He came straight from the gym in workout clothes with his gym bag. So sis, how's life? Great. Tomorrow I'm signing the contract for the new development project. Awesome. And I'm training for nationals. Heading to Vegas next month. We ordered coffee and pastries, talked about work, about his tournament, about our parents. Danny suddenly went quiet, looked at me closely. Jess, are you happy? I raised my hand, touched grandmother's pendant around my neck. It rested on my collarbone, heavy and warm. I'm free, and that's so much better. Danny smiled, reached across the table. I squeezed his hand. Outside the window snow was beginning to fall. The city was getting ready for the holidays, and I was getting ready for a new life. One where I wouldn't have to prove my worth. One where I mattered for who I was, not whose wife I was. I finished my coffee, looked at my brother, and laughed. Just because, from relief, from joy, from knowing the worst was behind me. Danny laughed with me. You know what I love most about you. What? That you didn't break. You could have stayed, kept taking it, but you chose yourself. That's strength. I just got tired of being miserable. Exactly. And that was the right call. We left the coffee shop into the snow. The city glittered with lights. Holiday music played on the streets. I walked beside my brother and thought about how surprisingly unpredictable life is. A year ago, I was married, unhappy, but afraid to change anything. Now I was single, but for the first time in years, I felt whole. Danny walked me to my car, hugged me goodbye. If you need anything, I'm here. Always. I know, little brother. I went up to my apartment, turned on the lights, hung up my coat, sat on the sofa with tea, and opened my laptop. In my inbox was an email from the new client. Meeting details, design concepts, budget discussion. I smiled, opening the files. Work I loved. A brother who supported me. Parents who accepted my choices. Freedom from a toxic relationship. This was my life and I loved it.